I honestly don't know if this hat is a good choice, but I really wanted to show you guys my hat. It has meeples on it. It's so cute. Anyways. Hey friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to the first video in my Cream of the Crop series. Yes, that's what I named it. Don't question it. It was just the first thing that came to mind when it came to the best of the best games, and it had to be garden related. So the Cream of the Crop, we're going to be talking about them in this series. This video in particular is actually the games that did not make my top 100 because I've only played them once, but they have potential and I can see them getting into my top 100. So I don't know what I'm going to call this video, but these are going to be 12 games, not 10. I'm going to do 12 because I couldn't pick because there's so many good games that I've played once that I want to play more. That I can see being in my top 100. So I picked 12 of them. We're going to talk about those today. Obviously, this video is just kind of me chatting about my first impressions of these games. I have not played them a lot, so these are just ones that I can see possibly getting into my top 100. I could play these games more and then realize that they are not for me, but my first initial play of all of these were like top notch, and I can definitely see me putting these into my top 100 in the future. So yes, anyways, without further ado, if you guys want to hear all about these games, then just keep on watching and give this video a big thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden, and we're gonna have a lot of awesome fun videos coming up because I am starting to work on my best games of all time, my top 100 games that I have played. So yeah, I'm very excited for that. So yeah, anyways, let's get into this video. I will also add that this might be the last time that you guys see my hair like this, because there's a possibility that I might have made a hair appointment and I'm gonna be doing something crazy. So yeah, that's a little fun fact. Anyways, let's get into these 12 games that I can see potentially being in my top 100 in the future. Shall we? All right, so I do have some of these physically, and then I don't have some of them physically. Some of them I've played that were like my friends' copies, and I do want to eventually get my own copy of them. So I'm gonna try to go back and forth between ones that I have physically and ones that I do not have physically. So we're going to get right into this. I think I'm gonna start with this one here because I can definitely see this one being in my top 100 in the future. It is a trick-taking game, which I wasn't expecting. There are a few trick-taking games. This is a little bit of a spoiler for my top 100, but there are a few trick-taking games in my top 100. But this is the heaviest trick-taking game that I've ever played. I love the art and I want to play this more. So that game is going to be King's Trick Takers. So this is actually a Japanese game. It was sent to me by Joyful Games, I believe is the publisher, and this is an import game that I do believe that if you guys have heard of the online board game store Board Game Bliss, they do have this available on Board Game Bliss. It's a little bit more expensive because it is an import game, but this game right here is insane. If you enjoy trick-taking games, I definitely recommend you check this out, possibly get your hands on it or play a copy of it. I'm kind of tempted to bring this to maybe Gen Con and some different conventions so that I can get people to try it because it has been so much fun. I actually saw Mike Delisio from the Dice Tower post about this, and I asked him what his thoughts were about King's Trick Takers, and he actually mentioned that this was one of his favorite trick-taking games currently. So I was like, okay, if Mike Delisio likes it that much, I really, I think Mike and I have some pretty similar tastes in board games, so I immediately wanted to grab this and check it out. So yeah, it's a trick-taking game where you are drafting these different critters and you're drafting these different families, and then those things are going to give you different betting numbers. They're going to give you ongoing abilities and different end of round scoring things, and you're going to be drafting 3 of these critters, one family at the beginning and then 3 different critters each round that can give you these different abilities and different ways of scoring. So each round is going to be different and each game is going to be different because you're going to be having a different family, you're going to be having some different critters each round. So I really, really enjoy it. It's a lot to learn, but I feel like this is the type of game that the more that you play it, the more you'll get to know all of the different critters and all of the cards and all of the different combinations of cards. So yes, that is the first one on my list. That is King's Trick Takers. Definitely one that I can see getting into my top 100 games of all time. Next game that I'm going to be chatting about is one that I do not have physically, but it's one that I played and I've talked about it a few times here on the channel. I have just fallen in love with this game and I've wanted to play it ever since. And that game is Tribes of the Wind. So Tribes of the Wind is a game where you're paying attention to the back of the cards of the people to your left and your right, which I think is such a cool mechanism that I haven't really seen in a lot of board games. And basically you're going to have your cards in front of you on this stand. All the other players can see the backs, and the backs are going to have different elements. There is water, fire, wind, and earth, I believe, or light and earth. There's like a yellow and a green. So you have those and you can see them, and then you are seeing the fronts of your cards and you're going to be able to use those cards for different actions, and the strength of those specific actions are going to be based off of the specific cards that your neighbors have. So it's this very cool kind of thing there that I absolutely fell in love with, and I want to play this again. And the different actions, you're basically trying to get rid of contamination off of your board, building out this kind of village, I guess, with different shrines. You can get like different abilities and different scoring things throughout the game. I don't exactly, this is something that I will mention right now with this video, is because I've only played these games once and some of them I played quite a while ago, I'm not going to know all of the details of exactly how these games play, because Tribes of the Wind specifically I played quite a long time ago, but since playing it, I cannot like stop thinking about it and not like wanting to play it again. So yeah, Tribes of the Wind is definitely one that I can see becoming one of my top 100 games. So that is why I wanted to mention it. That is Tribes of the Wind. Moving on to the next game. This is another one that I do have physically, and I want to give a huge shout out to Carly from Board Game Buzz, because she was actually doing a video. She was doing like a decluttering video, and this was one of the games that she actually decluttered, and I reached out to her and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's funny because quite a few of the games that she was decluttering were games that I want to add to my collection, and I just like laughed at that, and she's like, oh my goodness, what games were they? And I mentioned this one and she said, let me send it to you. And I was like, no, that's fine, like I could like go purchase it myself or something, but she's like, no, like I want to send it to you. And then I offered to pay for shipping. She didn't allow me to pay for shipping, so we ended up doing like a trade. So she sent me this game, I sent her a few games. But anyways, huge thank you to Carly. You are a wonderful human. Definitely go check out Board Game Buzz if you have yet to do so. She's wonderful, as well as her friend Kim as well. But yeah, anyways, the game that I'm talking about is Trailblazer, a John Muir Trail. So this is by Mariposa Games, which I do believe that they have another one. I think they have the Arizona Trail instead of the John Muir Trail coming out. They did a Kickstarter for it, and I was tempted to back that one, and I played this one. I think the Arizona Trail is different and not the same gameplay as this one. I don't think it's actually like an expansion. It could be, I'm not 100% sure though. But anyways, I played this one and loved this one. So I was like, you know what, I would rather get the one that I've played and maybe potentially in the future play the Arizona one and really enjoy that one as well. But yeah, Carly did send this over and I'm so excited to play this one again. It does have a solo mode, which is really exciting. So I'm excited to hop into this one solo and also just in general hop into it again multiplayer, because I can definitely see this one becoming one of my top 100 games, because I just had the best time with this one. And I honestly can like tell you now that I don't 100% remember all of the gameplay. I do remember that it was a worker placement game and also some like resource management, collecting different things and then spending those things in order to gain cards and tiles and stuff like that. And then going up this trail and having to get to specific points at different points in the game, stuff like that. I just thought it really encompassed the vibe of like going on a hike, which I love. So anyways, that is Trailblazer, a John Muir Trail. Very excited to get this one to the table again. And again, thank you so much, Carly, for sending this over. Very excited for it. Moving on to the next game. This is one that I played at my friend Aiden's house. Aiden has the fancy like collector's edition of this one, and now if I do get this one into my collection, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the retail edition because the collector's edition of this one is just so beautiful. But I initially didn't think I would like this one as much as I did, but I freaking loved this game and I want to play it again, and like I said, want to get it in the collection, but I don't know if I can just deal with the retail because the collector edition is just so nice. But anyways, that game is Skyrise. So this one is coming from Roxley, and they make some great production games. Skyrise, the collector's edition, is absolutely beautiful. And like I mentioned, this is one that I didn't initially think I would enjoy because it does have some like bidding and auctioning-esque. I think it's more so bidding, but basically you are placing out buildings, and then someone can come and place a building that is a higher value adjacent to that building until everyone has passed except for one person, and then that person gets to flip over their building and they get to place their building in that spot, and then everyone else takes all of their buildings back. And you're placing in different ways, specifically for some like public objectives as well as some personal objectives. Then you're also doing a little bit of set collection with some tokens that you're picking up at each of these locations, as well as where you have your buildings out. So depending on how many of a specific token you have and how many buildings you have on a specific terrain, those are going to be multiplied, and then you're going to get victory points at the end. And I really liked that part of the game, and it just ended up being a game that I thought was very enjoyable, and I didn't think it was going to be as enjoyable as it was. So it's been one that I've wanted to play ever since we played it initially, and like I mentioned already, the collector's edition is absolutely beautiful with the 3D kind of board and all of the beautiful buildings and different things like that. So that is why I think that Skyrise could possibly get into my top 100 games of all time. All right, so moving on to my next game that I have physically that I can see being in my top 100. This is a polyomino game that just came out recently, and I can really see this game getting into my top 100 for sure. It's one that I've wanted to get to the table recently because it does play solo, and I haven't played the solo mode yet. But that game comes from Arcane Wonders, and that is World Wonders. So this is, like I mentioned, a polyomino game where you are putting out polyomino shapes. And the really cool thing about this one is that, if I remember correctly, you have a certain amount of money and you are going to be spending that money each round. And if you want to get a wonder, which are these really cool 3D kind of meeples of different shapes and different kind of cool wonders, like World Wonders, obviously that's what the game is called. But if you want to get one of those, you have to decide when on your turn or when on a round you want to get that wonder, because if you get that wonder, you have to spend the remaining amount of money that you have. So I do believe that each round you start with 7, and then you're going to be spending, 1 or 2 certain amounts to get certain shaped polyomino tiles to place onto your board. You can also get roads, different things like that. And there's different kind of rules for how you can place things out. But once you decide you really want one of those wonders, you have to give up the rest of your money. So if you really want a wonder and you don't want anyone else to take it, you probably at the start of that round want to spend all of your money in order to get that wonder. Or if you think that you can wait a few turns and no one will take the wonder that you want, you can, take a few turns to get a few more buildings or roads, different things like that, before you then spend the rest of your money to get that wonder. So I really love that part of the game. Again, I love polyomino games, if you guys do not know, and this one I can definitely see being one that I really enjoy. I've been really enjoying Planet Unknown recently, solo, and I also really love the Isle of Cats, and this one kind of is in that realm of games that I can see really enjoying, both multiplayer as well as solo. So that is why I could see possibly World Wonders getting into my top 100 games of all time. All right, so moving on to the next game, which is one that I do not have physically, but this is a game that I played quite a while ago. I think this was actually the same night that I played Trailblazers, I played this game as well, and I also played Rajas of the Ganges, which is one that I've thus so played a few more times, and spoiler alert, is in my top 100 because Rajas of the Ganges is one that I really enjoyed. So anyways, this one that I'm talking about is Witchstone. So I ended up having a board game night with a few people, and we played some really good games that night. Like I said, I played Witchstone, I played Rajas of the Ganges, and I played Trailblazers at John Muir Trail, and all of them were like so good. But anyways, let's get to Witchstone, which is the one that I'm chatting about now. Witchstone is one that, since we've played it, I, again, very much so like the other games, can just not stop thinking about playing it again. I don't have a physical copy of Witchstone, but it's definitely one that I've considered purchasing because I loved this game so much. It has this very interesting mechanism. I think there might be another game that kind of does a similar thing to it, but basically you're placing down these tiles, and the more of a certain icon that you can connect, the stronger that action is when you place down a tile. So if I place down a tile that has, you know, a wand, and I connect that wand to 3 more wands, that will then allow me to do a wand action of 4. So the more that you connect, the stronger your actions, which I think is very cool. And it's, again, a witchy kind of theme, which I do really enjoy. I have quite a few games in that kind of theme that I love, and I've been wanting to play Witchstone ever since. It's a very good one, and like I said with John Muir Trailblazers at John Muir Trail, I haven't played it in a while, so I don't remember exactly everything that's going on, but you're also placing out different paths on the main board and moving your witches and collecting different things, and there's a bunch of different objectives on the side. Bunch of different things you can do with the different actions and the different connecting icons that connect to different actions, and it's just such a good game. And I feel like not a ton of people talk about Witchstone, and it needs to be talked about more. So yes, that is why I think that if I play Witchstone more and have the opportunity to play it more, it could potentially be in my top 100 games of all time. All right, so speaking of witchy themed games, this has actually been probably the most recent game that I played on this list, and I played it once, and I actually think it was just this past weekend or the weekend before. But this is such a good game, and I am so happy to have a copy of it. You have no idea. But that game is Evenfall. So this is one that recently came out. It got announced, and I think it's just now coming to retail here in North America. I believe it's coming to you by Madigo, I think. But this is one that I saw and I was like, oh my goodness, I need to check that one out. I think it possibly came out in Europe at Essen last year in 2023. But yes, Evenfall is a card-based game where there's just so many different chaining of things and connections of things. You're doing a lot of resource management and stuff like that. And I've realized and discovered recently that I really enjoy games that have multi-use cards. Oh snap, that might actually be one that I need to add to this list. Not gonna lie, I probably am going to switch out 2 games in this list, because I just remembered another game that I recently played that, holy poop, so good. I can't wait to talk about that one. Anyways, back to Evenfall. This one has multi-use cards, and I really enjoy that, having those cards in your hand and then trying to decide whether you want to use that specific card for an ongoing ability that you tuck underneath your board, if you want to use it for, a card that you put into your tableau, if you want to use it for the ability of the specialist, different things like that. I really enjoy multi-use cards. So that is a lot of what Evenfall is. There's also some worker placement as well, and a little bit of area majority, which I think is really cool. And you're using mana to kind of put more power into these different area majority spots, and I think it's just so cool, and I cannot wait to play this one again. Apparently the solo mode of Evenfall is also great, so I'm excited to play that as well. And I can definitely see this one, based off of the gameplay as well as that witchy theme that I love, I can definitely see this one getting into my top 100 games of all time. So that is Evenfall. All right, so moving on to the next game. This is one that I do not own, and this is the one that I've actually switched out for another one. Fun fact, the other one that I switched out was Trickerion. It could possibly get into my top 100 as well because Trickerion was a fantastic game as well. There's just so many games. But anyways, I've taken that one out. Just think of it as like an honorable mention. Trickerion could as well. But the other one that I wanted to talk about that the multi-use card thing reminded me of is Lagranja. Lagranja? I don't know how to say it, but oh my goodness, my friend Kat introduced me to this game. She got like the big box version of it and it is absolutely stunning. It is a like farming game, but it also has those multi-use cards, which I just find so satisfying. And a lot of the times you get this hand of cards and you're like, oh, I want to use all of these cards for everything on them. Like I want to use this card for this ongoing ability. I want to use this card for like the order fulfillment thing. I want to use this card for all of these different things that it can be used for. But you really have to think about, I just spit. I'm getting too excited about these games. You really have to think about what best kind of like triggers off of each other and what things work best together. You might want everything, but you really have to think about what is best for all of the cards and what would be best to use from each of those cards. So it's just such a fun like decision-making process there of the multi-use cards. So that is why I wanted to mention Lagranja. It is wonderful. It is it's quite old game, but they like just recently came out with, I believe it was Board and Dice, came out with a, you know, fancier version or like a redone version of it with new art. But yeah, very fun game. There's a little bit of a race element in a way where you're trying to get to these different like public kind of buildings that you're trying to complete with these different resources. You're trying to complete your different kind of orders that you can use cards to slip into the top to have different order fulfillment there with different resources. And then you also have this little, not really area majority in the center, but different spots that you can like kick people out of. And then there's also like different abilities that you can gain when you finish off the public buildings. And I also forgot to mention that there is some dice drafting as well, very similar to Grand Austria Hotel if you've played that before, where basically you just roll a bunch of dice and then the numbers go to the different action spots and then you're drafting those dice in order to do those specific actions, which I love. I love anything with dice, cool ways to use dice in games. But yeah, that is why I wanted to mention Lagranja. Absolutely fantastic game, and I can 100% see that getting into my top 100 games of all time if I have the opportunity to play it more and possibly get it into the collection. So yes, Lagranja. All right, moving on to the next game that I do have physically. This is another one that I recently played that is a big Euro game, but so good. I can definitely see this one getting into my top 100. And that is Sankore, or Sankore, the Pride of Mansa. That is like the full name of it. But this was sent over to me by Osprey Games, so a huge thank you to them. But I did recently get to play this one. I've only played a multiplayer. Apparently the solo, I've heard some people tell me in the comments of my videos that the solo for this is really good. So I'm very excited to play this one solo. But Sankore, I really enjoyed. It is a big boy, let me tell you. The main board is ginormous and there's just a lot going on, but it is just so satisfying. There are a bunch of different like mini games, which I love in board games. Depending on the classes that you end up teaching, that's going to allow you to then do some sort of action in these different mini game areas of the board. Each of those mini games are representing a school. So there's like the School of Law, School of Mathematics, School of Astronomy, not astrology. So there's a bunch of different schools and you're doing mini games in there and doing actions that are a strength depending on your personal player board, as well as how many students have been taken off of that school. It's very cool. It's a big game, like I said, so I'm not going to be able to explain it fully, But I think another thing that I've discovered recently is I really enjoy games that have these like mini games in them. So depending on the action that you take, you are taking action at like a specific spot on the board and in the game. And each of those actions are going to be completely different. Very similar to Federation. That one's really good as well from Eagle Gryphon Games. That, spoiler alert, may or may not be in my top 100. Who knows? But yes, Sankori is definitely one. If I play it more, it will for sure be in my top 100 games of all time because I really enjoyed it. I also, like I said, I'm very excited to play it solo. So that is Sankori, the pride of Mansa Musa. All right, so we have 3 more to go. 2 of them I do have physically and 1 I do not. So let's get into another one that I have physically. This is from Ivy Studios or Ivy Games, and this is one that I did not think at all that I would enjoy because it is a social deduction game, but it's a very different social deduction game, and I'm sure you know the game that I'm talking about, but that is Veiled Fate. So I've played this once so far, and like I said, I didn't think I would enjoy it because I am not a huge fan of social deduction games. I do not like lying. I do not like talking to people and having to put on some sort of like, not show, but trying to hide things. I don't love that. So in typical social deduction games, I am very uncomfortable most of the time. But in this one, it kind of felt to me more like a logic deduction kind of puzzle because you're more so looking at what people are doing on the board, what actions they're taking in order to deduce who you think they are, because each player is going to be a different colored demigod, and you are trying to figure out who is certain colors because each of the different colored like demigods are going to be going up in victory points, and whatever demigod is the highest in victory points at the end of the game is going to be the winner, but no one knows who is who. And you can also on your turn move any of the demigods, so you can be moving yourself, you could be moving other players, making other players think you're a color that you're actually not. And I just think it is such a cool game, and there's a little bit of that like social deduction and like kind of questioning each other, but it's not, it just feels very different from the other social deduction games. And I really enjoy that because I am more so comfortable with this than I was with some other social deduction games. So that is why I can see Veiled Fate becoming one of my top 100 games of all time if I get the opportunity to play it more. There is also a like team variant where everybody is partnered up with somebody, but you don't know who your partner is, which I think would be very fun. So you're like trying to figure out who your partner is at the same time as trying to figure out who everybody else is, and I just think that's very cool. So yes, Veiled Fate, I could definitely see it being in my top 100 games of all time. And the last game that I wanted to chat about that I do not have physically, this is one that I really want to get physically because this one has a solo mode. Apparently the solo mode is very fun, and this one I enjoyed very, very much. So this is a magician game. I've already mentioned Tricarion, which is technically not on the list, but it's kind of on the list. But this game is The Magnificent. So this, I feel like a lot of people have said that this is a like sleeper hit. Not a lot of people talk about this game, and I think more people should be talking about this game because it's very fun. It mixes some like dice drafting, which you guys know I love from chats about La Granja, as well as the Grand Austria Hotel, as well as it mixes polyomino, which I've chatted about with what game? What game did I chat about? World Wonders. I really enjoy that one. So mixing those two mechanisms together and having this fun magician magic kind of theme to it makes me love it very, very much. And I really want to play this one again. Fortunately, my friend Steph does have it and we could play it at some point, but I would love to play this one solo as well because apparently it plays solo really well. But yeah, like I said, you're drafting a die of a certain color and then placing it on one of your action cards. And then depending on the color of that die and the pip number, that's going to determine the action that you can take and the strength of that action depending on the pip number. And you're going to be collecting these different tiles onto your board. You're going to be doing some different like tricks that you need specific things for in order to perform those tricks. And then you also have some like scoring on these different cards that you're going to be scoring each round, and you're getting resources and different things like that. I loved this game so much, and I think we played this during like a weekend kind of board game thing that we did, and I think this was my #1 game of that entire weekend, which we played like upwards of 20 games. So yeah, it was very, very good. Absolutely love the Magnificent. Really want it in the collection, and I'm excited to play it more. So that one I can definitely see being in my top 100 games. All right, and the last game, I do have this one physically, and I want to play this one again so bad. I played this for the first time at Adam, which I did a vlog of, so definitely go and check that out if you have yet to do so. But I got the opportunity to play this one. It is from Eagle Gryphon Games, and it is a Vital Lacerda game. I've only ever played one other Vital Lacerda, or one of his bigger games. I have played Bot Factory, and I have played Kanban EV, which I believe Kanban EV is one of his larger titles. But this one here is a pretty hefty, chunky boy. There's a lot going on in this game, but I loved the gameplay of this one, and the overall rules of it weren't actually that complicated. It's just the decision space of this game that makes it so hefty. But the game that I am talking about is Inventions, Evolution of Ideas. So this is one that, like I said, I played at Adam, and that was back, I think in, when was that? April? Possibly? It was quite a while ago. But yeah, I loved this game. Like I said, it was a lot. It was very brain burny, but after that game, it was probably like a, 4 or 5 hour game. After that, I was like, oh my God, I need to experience that again. It was so much fun. And I absolutely love the theme of inventions. There's also Inventors of the South Tigris, which I've really enjoyed. And it's all this like process of kind of discovering some sort of invention and then building it and then publishing it. I love that process. And a lot of Vital's games are kind of like procedural, and you're kind of going from one step to another. But this one didn't feel like you were doing the same process over and over again, because there were so many things that you were doing. It didn't get stale, or it didn't get boring, that kind of procedure that you were going through. And also other players can kind of help you through the procedure, and I just, so good. There's like a tableau building aspect to it where you're putting out tiles on your board that are going to get you ongoing abilities and worker placement spots and endgame scoring and so many different things on this board. Then you're also doing this worker placement thing and doing that whole procedure of discovering an invention and then building it and then publishing it and then putting it out on the map and all of these different things. Like I said, this is a big game, and I feel like that could be the only thing that would hold it back from becoming one of my favorite games of all time, is just the fact that it's going to be hard to get to the table. There is a solo mode in this one, and I'm a little bit scared to try the solo mode, but I feel like if I prepare myself well enough, I should be able to play it solo. I've never played a Vital game solo, so yeah, we'll see how that goes, but I do want to play this. A lot of my friends would love to play this, so hopefully in the near future we'll be able to get this to the table and play it at a 3 or 4 player count. But yeah, that is Inventions, Evolution of Ideas. Definitely see this one possibly getting into my top 100 games of all time. All right, friends, so that is going to be everything for today's video. Those are all of the 12 or so games that I see getting into my top 100 games of all time, potentially in the future. These are all games that I've only played once, but after those initial plays, I was like, oh my God, this is such a good game. I want to play it more. So I definitely think that if I do play these games more, they could potentially be in my top 100 games of all time. But that being said, my top 100 games of all time will always be changing. And I feel like no matter how often I do it and how often I reassess, there's always going to be new games that I'm going to be playing and new games that I feel like could go into my top 100. So yeah. Top 100 games of all time is such a hard thing, I will tell you guys right now. The next video that you guys see after this, I don't know if that's going to be the start of the top 100 games of all time series or not, but I will tell you guys, I have been working for months trying to get this top 100 games to be the best that it possibly can be, and holy manoli is it ever hard to choose your top 100 games of all time, especially when I am consistently playing so many amazing games. It is so hard, but I do think that I got it to a good top 100 list, and I'm really, really happy with it. But I did want to mention all of these that I did today because I feel like they're also fantastic games and I could see them, you know, getting there. So anyways, I love you guys so, so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video, which, like I mentioned, I might look different. It might be the start of my top 100 games of all time. I don't know, we'll see, but I will see you guys then. Bye, friends.